My name is Ole Lykke, and I have been living in Kristiania since '79. That means for 32 years. And today I'm 65 years old. And before I moved into Kristiania, I was a teacher in history and literature. And while in Kristiania, I spent my time doing photography, doing lectures about Kristiania, working in bars, restaurants, even as a hairdresser. And the main thing I'm doing now in Kristiania, my main project, is building up the Kristiania Historical Archive. So today I'm sort of Kristiania's historian. And my contribution to the exhibition here is first of all the collection of posters. That is a really historical collection, because the posters you see on my right hand all derive from the 30s, 70s, and then there are posters from all the rest of the years, of course, but there's a collection of about 1,500 posters from those 40 years. And also we have been collecting all the Kristiania newspapers from these 40 years, and newspaper clippings, clippings from the newspapers about Kristiania. And actually our collection of newspaper clippings in the shelves is 16 meters. Kristiania has been a big subject of debate in Denmark for all those years. So that's me, I'm Kristiania's historian. What makes Kristiania different from other places? It's a very special place. It's very near the center of Copenhagen. And on the other hand, it's part of the old defense system around Copenhagen. So it doesn't look like any other place. You have the moat, you have the old city walls. All the old houses are built by the military. And they're very different. Some are built in wood, some are built in stone, some are high, some are small. A lot of the houses used to be stables for horses, because Kristiania was a military barracks for artillery. And until 1932, the artillery was drawn by horses. So there was about 300 horses in Kristiania in the 30s. And then in the 40s, it was taken over by the Germans. The Nazis was running that military barracks, and the Danish collaborators was living there. After the war, nobody really wanted to use that barracks anymore. It was used for storage of military equipment, and in the 60s, it was more and more abandoned. And so in the 68, 69, 70, there was this sort of youth revolt, the hippie revolution, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Vietnam demonstrations, the drugs, the hash, the whatever. So when this military barracks was left by the military, then in the 71, a lot of young people started to move in with the idea of creating an alternative society. And the basic idea was formulated like this: in Kristiania, you can do whatever you want to do, as long as you don't prevent others from doing what they want to do. And on the long term, the idea of Kristiania is to stop physical and psychic pollution and create a self-sustainable society, both economically and mentally. That was sort of the basic idea from the start. So the basic idea was really very anarchistic. That the individual freedom was really important all the way through, and still is very important in Kristiania. Kristiania is a part of Copenhagen, which is called Christians Harbor, Christians Harbor. So my guess is that Kristiania is sort of the female side of the masculine Christians Harbor. Christians Harbor was founded by a king in Denmark called Christian IV, who actually did a lot of the building of Copenhagen. So I think it's a female part. Another explanation that's not so likable, but maybe part of it, is that the capital of Norway, Oslo, was called Kristiania until 1905. And it's Kristiania for the same reason. It was Christian IV who also founded Kristiania in Norway. Norway changed name to Oslo when it became independent from Denmark and Sweden in 1905. And there's a famous novel, actually it's 3 novels, called the Kristiania Bohemia. And Kristiania is even today much more Bohemia than it is political. We never really became Marxist in the 70s. We always more like the personal freedom, like the Bohemians does. There are a lot of artists in Kristiania, and especially there are a lot of painters. Also today a lot of musicians, and of course one of the reasons is that Kristiania is a beautiful place, and in Kristiania, the streets are very much different from the streets in the rest of Copenhagen, because you leave all kinds of stuff in the street, and when you want to build your house, you get a lot of stuff together, and it piles up, and actually a lot of what's happening in the street looks like art. Then it's moved into the house and changes. And another reason, of course, is that it has been very cheap to live in Kristiania. Most artists, they don't make a lot of money, and they use their time to create instead of earn a lot of money. So the fact that it's used to be very cheap to live in Kristiania, of course, also attracts a lot of artists. And then there's this thing, when you have 10 artists, then the next 10 they come because artists inspire each other, and artists always had some kind of high status in Kristiania. People like creative people in Kristiania. Art is not the only important thing. The important thing is to create your life. The important thing is to be creative about oneself, about what one does, about the world around yourself. So we have a slogan in Kristiania that says like this: live your life creatively, or free your life. Make your life free, so you have more choices to create your life in different manners and different ways. Like I have done by moving to Kristiania. I could be a bartender and a hairdresser and a teacher, and I've been able to live more than one life. Yeah, I think it's important to be creative. I think that gives a lot of satisfaction to oneself, and also when you look at all the stuff that these painters and actually I did some of the posters myself. It's very, it makes yourself happy when you make a poster. I made this one, by the way, and next day it's all over town, and you see your creation and you feel, I did something. It's important. It's important that you can feel that you have done a difference, that you have done a thing that nobody else has done, and so on. So when I was in school, I was part of a group making the school magazine. And for me that's like posters. The main thing is not that I make something that has never been done before, and it's very unique. It's a painting and nobody can do it like I can do it, and nobody can get the same idea. It's not like that. It's okay. It's not like that. I like to communicate. So I think it's really important to communicate. And I think it's really important to communicate in a manner that sort of is aesthetic and satisfies aesthetic needs and is interesting. If you want to communicate, you fucking have to make it interesting. You can't force people to listen to some shit, you have to make it interesting. So I think when you look at these posters, you see people try to and succeed to make their message interesting and artistic and aesthetic. I think that's important. So what school children could do, make a school magazine, make a drawing, now we have to tell everybody that on Saturday we have a party. Instead of just make some little note on your computer, make a beautiful little poster and put colors to it and spend some hours doing it. It's very big satisfaction to see it on the walls afterwards. And people, they feel more like coming on that party when they see somebody has put their heart into the invitation. This is a poster that was done for an exhibition in the National Museum in Denmark about Kristiania and the book. And on this poster, it's Kristiania seen from a church tower really close to Kristiania. And on this poster you can see this is the old moat around Copenhagen. And these are the city walls, and this is also the city walls. So Kristiania is a military barracks, and then the city walls. And actually, from the entrance to Kristiania here, and all the way through, crossing the bridge and to the end out here, there's nearly 2 kilometers. So Kristiania is really big. Of course, it's very narrow on this part, but all in all, it's 34 hectares, acres, I think it's called. You can also see that it's the buildings here are very different. You have these very long buildings, you have these small buildings, you have this yellow one very different from the others. And out here you have wooden buildings, and it's very different, all of it. The first buildings made in Kristiania was this one and this one. They are from 1840, 1850. And this building was finished in 1864. This was for the soldiers, and this was for the soldiers' equipment. And this building is the last part of a very long building for the horses. Then these buildings, 6 very similar buildings, were used also for the horses in the bottom of the buildings and soldiers in the rest. These were used for soldiers. This part of Kristiania was used as a factory for manufacturing gunpowder and grenades. And actually these buildings were used during the war by the Germans to manufacture guns. So this is pretty different, also very polluted today, of course. And this part was used by the marine, by the sailors, the marine, for storing gunpowder and mines, that blow up ships and like that. So it's very different, all of it. And today we live 700 grown-up people and a little more than 200 kids from 0 to 14 years of age, spread all over the area. And we have divided the area into 14 small areas because we don't want this kind of centralized government or something. We want each area to be more or less independent. And then, of course, when we have common problems, we have a common meeting that take care of common problems, which usually are problems concerning the state around and what's going on there. In this part of Kristianijos, we have about 40 workshops and shops and manufacturing places, bakery, green grocery. This place is used for materials for building. In this building we have a cinema. In this building we have a bath house and a health house. Here is manufactured bicycles. The bakery here. This is a place for woodwork, you know, doors, windows, furniture, stuff like that. In this building we have a restaurant and a music place with live music 5 times a week. It's probably the place in Copenhagen with the most live music. We have a gallery for art. Many of the people here have exhibited in that gallery. Cafe, mail, post office. And in this building there's room for 1,200 people. So that's a place where we have theater and concerts and celebrate Christmas every year, open and free for everybody who need a place to go at Christmas time. Also a Christmas market. And in the green part of Kristianijos here, many of the artists live there, and it's more like, and of course when you have children, you tend to move from this area and into this area. And then of course, as you mentioned, Pusher Street, the place where people are selling hashes, that's this area here. It's the only place in Kristianijos it's allowed to sell hashes, but there's a lot of hashes sold, and that also gives a lot of problems, for sure.